Good morning, and thank you for joining the New England Nursing Home Quality Care Collaborative. My name is Sarah Durenick-Dudley with the New England QIN-QIO, and this is part one of our two-part webinar series on improving nursing home resident mobility. Before we begin today's program, I have a few housekeeping items to review. This webinar will be recorded, and the presentation will be available within a few business days. The phone lines will be on mute for the duration of the presentation. We ask that you please do not put your line on hold. If you have any questions at any point throughout the presentation, please enter it in the chat panel to the right of your screen. Please make sure you send your comments to all participants. Joshua Bernard from the QIN-QIO team in Massachusetts will be monitoring and responding to questions and comments in chat throughout this presentation. We will also have plenty of time for questions at the end of the presentation, and we'll open up the lines back up for you. Lastly, if you find the presentation is a little cut off, please use the plus or minus icon in the top right of the presentation window to adjust your screen accordingly. I'm pleased to have Florence Johnson from the New England QIN-QIO, who will also be joining me later during today's webinar presentation. This webinar is intended for nursing home leadership and staff to provide an overview of strategies and resources to help your residents maintain or improve mobility. During our presentations, we will discuss the basic definition of mobility, relate how encouraging nursing home resident mobility can lead to improvements in several quality measure outcomes, identify strategies to take a person-centered approach to reduce falls and eliminate the use of bed and chair alarms, and review the nursing home change package and apply strategies from the mobility bundle. Our first objective for today is to define and understand mobility and why it's important for your staff to work on maintaining or improving mobility with your residents. Mobility is not just walking. It's about strength, flexibility, balance, and staying power. It means being able to move your own body or having someone help you move from place to place. It includes walking, turning over in bed, getting up from a chair, standing, using a cane, walker, or a wheelchair to get around, or moving from place to place within or outside the nursing home. Lack of mobility can have a negative impact on the overall well-being and quality of life for your residents. Encouraging your residents to be more mobile is a balance between autonomy and safety. Staff can be afraid of a resident falling and may discourage mobility or even choose to use a better chair alarm to prevent falls. However, limiting mobility, in fact, increases the risk of falls. So immobility impacts ADLs, increases falls, pressure ulcers, it impacts diabetes, the upper respiratory tract, sleep, and the overall health of residents. For residents who are maintaining or improving mobility, their muscles and bones are strengthened, which makes fractures less likely in the event of a fall. Their overall risk of falling is reduced. It improves their heart and lung function, improves sleep and energy levels. It reduces the risk of pressure ulcers, improves their overall mood. They have safer transfers. There's increased independence with ADLs, and residents are less socially isolated and participate more in group activities. Increasing resident mobility also has benefits for the overall staff. It facilitates self-care, so residents can do more for themselves. It makes transfers easier and safer for staff as well as residents, and ultimately saving them time. It promotes safer walking with fewer serious falls, and it enables residents to access toilets more quickly and easily to promote continence. So how does your staff promote resident mobility? We ask that you share your responses in chat. Now, while you're typing your responses, I wanted to talk about who is responsible for ensuring that residents maintain or improve their mobility. Is it physical therapy? Is it a strong restorative nursing program? Keeping residents as physically functional and independent as possible is everyone's job. Aides, nurses, dietary, housekeeping, administration, it's the whole team. Mobility is an important part of your daily care as skin care or vital signs. And it's as much about the environment as it is about care. Please continue sharing your responses in chat. So what are some ways that you can assess mobility? The National Nursing Home Quality Campaign, formerly known as the Advancing Excellence Campaign, has a mobility assessment tool to use as part of their mobility tracking tool, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a few minutes. So as part of your QAPI programs, we're using data to drive improvement. The first step to start collecting data by completing the monthly mobility assessment on every resident that you're tracking using this mobility assessment form. This tool consists of 6 items from the MDS and 2 items similar to the MDS items. And Joshua will be sharing a link to this tool in chat for you to download and explore following today's session. You can also track and measure mobility using the MDS 3.0 quality measures. This includes the percentage of long-stay residents whose ability to move independently worsens, and the percentage of long-stay residents whose need for help with the activities of daily living has increased. Both of these quality measures are publicly reported on the Nursing Home Compare website and make up part of your overall 5-star quality rating. Also, you can track improvements in mobility by looking at other quality outcomes that are the result of poor or increased mobility. This includes falls with major injury, pressure ulcers, and depression. You'll find that as mobility improves, these quality measures will also improve. Using the New England QIN-QIO's Standard Analytic Report to track changes in your quality measures over time, as a participant of this learning collaborative, you have access to these free quality tracking and monitoring reports each quarter. These reports track each quality measure over time, as you can see from this sample chart for this measure. The red line represents the sample facility, the blue line is the state average, and the purple line is the overall national average. You can see that the state and national average are following the same trend. As of Q1 of 2017, the average was 18%. And you can see that the sample facility is running much higher than the state and national average and continues to increase. This trend should alert your team that improvements need to be made. This particular MDS 3.0 measure reports the percentage of long-stay residents who experienced a decline in independence of locomotion during the target period when compared to a prior assessment. This is a look-back measure, and it's defined as a decline in their ability to move around their room and in adjacent corridors on the same floor. If they're in a wheelchair, this measure reports their decline in their self-sufficiency once in the chair. Now, this long-stay measure evaluates the quality of nursing home care with regard to the loss of independence and locomotion among individuals who have been residents of the nursing home for more than 100 days. The loss of independence and locomotion itself is an undesirable outcome. Additionally, it increases the risk of hospitalization, pressure ulcers, circulatory problems, pneumonia, and overall reduced quality of life. Residents who have declined in independence in locomotion also require more staff time than those who are more independent. And I just wanted to note that this quality measure is fairly new as of April 2016, and it began impacting the 5-star rating system for nursing homes effective July 2016. It was weighted 50%, and then this past January it became 100% weighted. So for this MDS 3.0 measure, it reports the percentage of long-stay residents whose need for help with weight loss activities of daily living has increased when compared to a prior assessment. The 4 weight loss ADL items are self-performance in bed mobility, self-performance transfer, self-performance eating, and self-performance toileting. This measures what the resident actually did, not what he or she might be capable of doing. Within each ADL category during the 7-day look-back according to a performance-based scale. Now, a resident's abilities in the activities of daily living should not diminish unless the circumstances of the individual's clinical condition demonstrate that that was unavoidable. Another tracking tool is the Advancing Excellence Mobility Tracking Tool. This tracking tool is an Excel workbook that you can use to track your resident's mobility, change in mobility, the timeliness of assessments, use of alarms and restraints, and the frequency and severity of falls. Your data will produce charts that help you identify patterns and track processes. You can enter your outcome measures using this tool and each month to view trends of your progress over time. The first step is to complete a monthly mobility assessment on every resident that you're tracking using the mobility assessment form discussed a few slides back. So some examples of strategies for encouraging nursing home resident mobility include walking programs to maintain and improve resident mobility. Many nursing homes have implemented walking programs, resulting in numerous positive outcomes. These programs build up muscle tone and strength, improve circulation, increase balance. Residents also experience increased self-esteem, dignity, and socialization as a result of their participation. To improve the success of a walking program, be sure to educate staff on the benefits of walking and include the nurse aides within the interdisciplinary conferences to develop effective individualized approaches. It may be helpful to have a start and stop point for the ambulation route of residents, changing the distance walked according to their individual needs. Facilities have also found success in providing rewards for residents' accomplishments, such as offering a favorite food or presenting a certificate or recognition. Falls prevention is one of the best ways to reduce the seriousness of falls, is to really preserve and enhance resident mobility. Providing exercise programs that promote strengthening, balance, stability, and endurance. This could include lifting weights, yoga, and walking programs. You can also look for ways to add movement outside of the scheduled exercise sessions during activities, such as a group stretch prior to playing bingo. Providing interactive resident activities, environmental design, improving residents with a space, or providing residents with a space for walking or wheeling that is free from clutter and ensure these spaces are well lit and inviting. Supportive equipment, you would want to ensure that appropriate footwear is available for residents. Grab bars and supportive devices should be in place and well maintained, ensuring furniture is of the appropriate height. Wheelchair seating and mobility, promoting physical activity for residents using wheelchairs, and also minimize the use of wheelchairs and lifts in order to encourage ambulation and decrease loss of leg strength. Pain management, assessing for and treating pain or other underlying conditions that could potentially limit mobility. Sleep. A well-rested resident is more apt to participate in physical activities than a tired resident. To promote adequate sleep, create a restful environment that limits nighttime noise and lights and other disruptions. And then last but not least, alarm and restraint reduction. So now I think it's a good time for me to turn this over to Florence, who will be talking more about reducing the use of alarms. Florence, just let me know when you want me to move the slide.
Alrighty, thank you, Sarah. And I will apologize ahead of time. I am in a facility, so if you hear paging, please accept my apologies in advance. Could you move to slide 14, please? I'd like to start by just asking a question. How many people online right now is your facility currently using alarms? Just answer yes or no.
Emily or Jennifer, if you guys can open that poll. Thank you.
So, yes, please just enter yes or no, and then Sarah, you'll let me know what the results are.
It looks like we have a second.
Okay, and I'm not defining what alarms are, whatever alarms you're using in your building, if you can just respond appropriately. Thank you.
I don't have the polling results yet, so when we continue, we'll see if it comes
All right,
up.
we'll move on. So I'm here to talk to you today about personal alarms. And a personal alarm is any device that emits any type of loud warning signal when a person moves. These types of alarms can be pressure sensitive, so if a person is laying down or sitting in a chair, any body movement at all will activate that alarm. There's also a seatbelt alarm, and this is usually used for people who don't have quote-unquote trunk support. And a lot of facilities use these thinking that it's for to be able to support the person's trunk. And there's also the cord attachment, which is usually used in the back of someone's wheelchair, and it attaches to a piece of clothing so that if they move or make any jerky movement at all, this will set off an alarm. So in Sarah's last slide, she talked about sleep and having your residents be well rested. Imagine having the alarm going off all the time. How much sleep can you get when there's so much noise in the building? We already have loud noises from staff conversations and just the regular activity that goes on your unit. And now we're adding personal alarms to that. Next slide, Sarah.
Right, and the polling results, we had 23 that responded yes and 13 that responded no, and the rest we did not get responses from.
Okay, well, that's a good place to start, and hopefully the ones that didn't respond just didn't have time to put in an answer. So if you look at the MGS, it's actually the definition of a restraint, as Sarah said it. A physical restraint is defined as anything manual, physical or mechanical device, material, equipment that's attached to the resident that keeps them from moving freely or being able to access any parts of their body. So I told you about using the seatbelt alarm to control trunk. So if I'm a resident who likes to bend over and play with my feet, and you put me in a seatbelt restraint to keep me from doing that, that's a seatbelt alarm. That's actually a restraint because I like to access my feet. So don't kid yourself in saying that, oh no, we're supporting the resident's trunk. If you're keeping the resident from doing something that they want to do with any parts of their body, that is considered a restraint. However, if you have a resident and a seatbelt alarm and they're able to undo it on command, then it's not considered a restraint. So based on this definition alone, a seatbelt alarm would be considered a restraint. As a matter of fact, any of those alarms that I listed would be considered a restraint because it keeps the person from being able to move or access parts of their body. Next slide, please. F221 tells us that the resident has the right to be free from any physical or chemical restraints that are imposed for the purpose of discipline or convenience that is not required to treat the resident's medical condition. So think about that for a minute. We have residents living with dementia that we give them antipsychotics because, quote unquote, they're having behaviors that we cannot control. Based on this, that would be considered a restraint. So think about, as you go through your day, the different forms of non-physical restraints that we put on our residents. Next slide, please. So how do residents respond to alarms? As you go through your life today, you're taught that if an alarm goes off, a fire alarm goes off, your immediate response is to run from wherever that alarm is coming from because there's a fire alarm. If you have a vehicle that has an alarm built into it and your alarm goes off, your immediate response is to move and go towards your vehicle. So we're groomed to believe that when there's an alarm, our immediate response is to move. But yet, we have our residents in facilities and we put alarms on them and tell them, don't get up, sit back down. If you're baking cookies and your oven alarm goes off, your immediate response is to go to the oven and get your cookies. So now, we're trying to undo all the learning that our residents have learned all through their lives. So, residents will respond to alarms and want to get up and get away from the noise. And then they learn the behavior of, every time I get up, they're telling me not to move. So now they become non-weight-bearing, not mobile, because every time the alarm goes off, it makes a noise and staff tells them to sit down. So now we make them immobile and we open them up for possible pressure ulcers. Alarms, most of the time, like I said, lets you know that something's happening. So most of the time in our facilities, by the time we hear the alarm, our resident is already going down or has been down. I will give you an example. I was at a building about 3 years ago doing chart audits, and I was left on the station on the unit by myself with about 3 or 4 residents that were in their wheelchairs with alarms on. One particular resident kept getting up and the alarm would go off, and she'd look around to see if someone was coming. No one came, so she'd sit back down and then she'd get up. About the 3rd time of her doing that, she finally got up because no one was responding, and she went into her room. She was in there for about 2 or 3 minutes. Came back out, sat back down, and then the alarm quieted down. So staff becomes kind of muted to the noises of the alarm. And you have to ask yourself, what is the purpose of having that alarm on your resident? As we go through our day, how many times do you get up and walk around? How many times do you adjust yourself in your seat? Could you imagine if every time you did that, an alarm went off? Ponder that for a few minutes. Next slide, please. So if I'm a resident and I don't have an alarm, but my roommate has an alarm or the person I sit next to in the dining room has an alarm, I will also be triggered by that noise. And in the example that I just gave you about the resident, how often do residents disable the alarm? And we don't really think about why are they doing it and what is our response to that? How often does your resident protest to having the alarm put on? Either physically or verbally. And we seem to ignore our residents' refusal to have the alarm put on because we know better. We get so used to the noise that we even forget that it's going on. So think about why you are using the alarms that you use on your residents. Our culture changed about 3 years ago, had a meeting to really talk about alarm reduction in our state. So I asked facilities that were currently using alarms to bring us alarms, and we had about 150 people in the room. So we put the alarms in different areas of the room. They didn't know that the alarms were under their seats, and we also had some in our hands. So every once in a while, you would hear the alarms going off as people were adjusting in their seats. And then we would manually, occasionally just hit the button so the alarm would go off. This was a half-day session for us. Within an hour or two of the conference, people actually came to us and said, can you please stop with the alarms? They never realized, because we had administrators and directors of nursing in the room, they never realized how annoying and truly intrusive the noise of an alarm could be. Because we as staff, we walk through, we go in and out, so our residents are living with this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Next slide, please. So here are some of the justifications that we as professionals use for using alarms. They will tell us when the person is moving or when they're about to fall. When was the last time you were able to catch your resident mid-fall because the alarm went off? We also say that it helps to prevent falls. I've never seen an alarm that prevents falls. It tells us when our resident is just about hitting the floor. And we have no other means of keeping our residents safe. We have to do better. We have to find other ways to keep our residents safe, because in some ways we're actually contributing to falls when we have these alarms going off. I'll tell you another story about a resident. I was in another building, and the gentleman, it never failed, after every meal, he would say to them, nurse, I have to go to the bathroom. Nurse, I have to go to the bathroom. And they would say to him, just a few minutes, just a few minutes. He got to a point where he realized that if he took his seatbelt off, the alarm would go off and everyone would come running. So he would wait 2 or 3 times of them saying, wait a few minutes, and then he would take that seatbelt off, and all of a sudden now, 3 people are depending on him, helping him to the bathroom. So it was actually a reverse conditioning. He now has conditioned staff to say, okay, I'll give you 3 chances, but on that 3rd chance, I am going to the bathroom whether you like it or not. So he takes off his seatbelt, and he gets the attention that he needs. 3 people every single time he takes the seatbelt off. Next slide, please. So how do you go about reducing alarm use in your building? It's important that you have buy-in from your family members. It's important that you let your family members know exactly what your goal is. Families are very afraid, they're concerned about their family members, and they only want the best for their family. So it's up to you to be upfront with them and give them the history behind why you're doing it, the legal reasons why you're doing it, and the fact that this is improving the quality of life for their family members. They should be given a defined plan, a timeline, and an opportunity to ask questions and verbalize their concerns. And this last part about asking questions and verbalizing concerns should not be a one and done. It should be continuous. Families should be allowed and have an open door to whomever is in charge, your directors, your champion on alarm reduction. Next slide, please. You also need to have buy-in from your staff. as a matter of fact, it's more important that your staff buy in before you get to your families. Because if your frontline staff do not buy in, they will derail whatever you're trying to do. They will go to families, especially the ones who are anti being alarm-free, and they will bond with them and get them going that, oh no, look at what they're trying to do here, they're putting your family at risk. So if you can get your staff to understand what you're doing and get buy-in, that's about 50% of your struggle right there. If the staff doesn't buy in and they don't understand the importance of their role, you will not succeed. They'll think that this is a fad and just give it a little bit more time and it'll go away. Obviously, you know, to be prepared, you'll have pushback from your staff. They'll tell you this is what we've always done. You're putting our residents at risk. But you have the data, you have the education and the rules of participation behind you to let your staff know why you have to do this. Next slide, please. So to start, please do not go through your whole building and start taking everyone off alarms. Always start small. Start with one unit, maybe one or two residents, and then do your PDSA cycles, keep everyone up to date on what's going on. Try using a storyboard, especially for families. Use your data. Show the unit how successful your attempts are, and when you have a little hiccup, own that. Don't be afraid to share that with your staff. Once you're able to successfully reduce alarms on one unit, then you can start to move it on to other units. And so please always celebrate any little successes that you have with alarm reduction. Any quality improvement that you're trying to do, celebrate and recognize the work that your staff is doing. Next slide, please. So once you've started the journey, you need to have a commitment with all your staff in the building. A commitment that you will no longer go back to using alarms. So you start by saying, okay, one, from this day forward, August 10th, 2017, we will not apply alarms on any new residents. And it's important to let people know ahead of time when they're shopping around and visiting your facility that you are either alarm-free or you're going alarm-free so that they are an educated consumer and they're making a right decision for themselves. Alarm should not be an option for any resident who currently doesn't have one. So now you're committing to alarm reduction. So you will not apply to any new residents that are coming in. Any residents that currently has no alarm will not have one placed on them. If a resident has a history of consistently removing the alarm, that's your low-hanging fruit that you can start saying, okay, maybe this person doesn't really need it. Look at having PT, OT work with this person to get them more stable and weight-bearing. If the alarm scares, agitates, and confuses a resident, please take it off. It can only make the situation worse. And if the resident suffers a fall with the alarm on, do not replace it because it's defeating the purpose of your goal. So include marketing in your work to reduce alarms. Have them included in all of your marketing tools that you are an alarm-free building. And make sure that the families know ahead of time that you're not using alarms. If a resident is on an alarm reduction program, set a time limit. So if Mrs. Jones hasn't had a fall in, say, a month, 3 months, we will remove the alarm and keep it off. And then as a team, as a body, look at setting a goal for when you want all your alarms reduced in the building. Because you have to have walls on your goals. If you just leave it open that, oh, we're going to go alarm free, but you don't have any set milestones, then you could go a whole year, 2 years, and still have alarms in your building. And once you've taken the alarms off, please get rid of them from your building, because staff will always find them and they will revert back to what they're comfortable with. But if I can't find it, then I can't place it on someone. Next slide, please. So I have a friend that tells me this all the time, and I'd like to share with you guys. Don't talk about it, be about it. So don't talk about, oh, we should go alarm free or why are we using these alarms. Make a decision today that you are going to be alarm free. And I'd like to offer the Connecticut team of the New England QIN-QIO is having a fall conference September 21st in Wallingford, Connecticut. We'll have more information coming. Hope you can join us. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Florence. So with all the information you gathered during today's presentations, what are your next steps? First, access your quarterly quality measure reports. Q1 reports will be sent out via email from your state nursing home team in the next couple weeks. If you're not yet on the distribution list to receive these reports, please contact your QIN-QIO nursing home state lead. Focus on the ADL measure and complete a root cause analysis to identify why a resident's need for assistance with ADLs increased in order to identify appropriate interventions. To help you evaluate your current processes and provide guidance for ways to make improvements, join us for part 2 of this 2-part webinar series on Thursday, August 31st, to hear from 2 high-performing nursing homes in New England who implemented strategies to improve mobility, eliminate alarms, and reduce falls. In addition, the National Nursing Home Quality Care Collaborative's change package was developed and updated over time to help nursing homes participating in our collaborative to select priority focus areas and implement tests of change. The change package is a menu of potential improvements, including strategies, change concepts, and specific actionable items that any nursing home can choose to begin piloting for purposes of improving quality care. It focuses on successful practices of high-performing nursing homes and includes specific replicable actions. So utilizing the nursing home change package and applying the strategies from the mobility bundle into your nursing home, the change bundle includes 6 strategies: define mobility for each unique individual, provide a place or space to move, provide supportive equipment, train staff and residents, support and encourage, and address physical and psychological needs that inhibit mobility. Each strategy in the bundle includes specific actions that your team can take to implement change. Joshua will share a link in chat for you to access the change package. So we did unmute all lines, so to unmute, please press #6 on your phone to ask a question. The lines are open now. And Joshua, just checking in with you to see if we have any questions in chat. Again, to ask questions, to unmute your line, press #6.
Hey, Sarah, we didn't have any questions. But we did have a couple of participants mention using a team approach and revamping their restorative program. Jennifer Lane, specifically, if you're would like to elaborate on that, we'd love to hear.
Great, thank you. If you can't join over the line to ask a question, feel free to ask a question in chat. Has anyone joined the line yet? Okay, so if we don't have any questions, we'll move forward. Again, we will be hosting the second part of this webinar series, so if you do have questions, you can bring those up during part 2 of the webinar series. Or if you have any questions that weren't answered or you weren't able to ask them, you can always reach out to your state lead. Links to the resources and tools shared during today's presentations are listed here. You can access a copy of these slides from the reminder email that went out this morning to those who registered for the webinar, or you can find it on our website, healthcarefornewengland.org, under the events section. Don't forget to mark your calendars with upcoming collaborative events and educational opportunities. Part 2 of this webinar takes place on August 31st. On September 14th, we will be hosting a webinar with the Maine Veterans Home, who will be sharing their antibiotic stewardship program. And on September 26th in Waltham, Massachusetts, the New England QIN-QIO is hosting an all-day pain management seminar. These are just a few of our many upcoming educational opportunities. And so you can check out our website for more information or to register. Yes, Morgan.
It looks like we forgot to put this event that you're now mentioning on that event slide, and I didn't catch that, so I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's why I quickly moved on to the next slide, because we do have another event coming up that Florence mentioned earlier. Suanne Gilderman will be presenting on preventing falls and sleep. That will be happening in Connecticut on September 21st. And we are running a contest right now to win complimentary entries to the conference. Each winner will receive 2 entries to the event, and we will be announcing the winners on August 31st. To enter, find the New England QIN-QIO on Facebook between August 10th and the 30th. Or if you already follow us, please share our post about the contest. It was just posted today on Facebook. And that will earn you an entry. So here's a link to our Facebook page. Following today's webinar, you will be directed to a survey to provide feedback on today's webinar. Your input helps us to improve these educational sessions and provide you with meaningful programs in the future. Also, within the next few business days, we will send out an email to everyone that contains links to both today's presentation and a recording of the webinar. Thank you all for attending today's webinar, and have a great day.
Bye, Sarah. Thank you. Thank you, Florence.